Today on Gary's Urban Larder, I'm making biscuits for you. A lot of you have asked me for the recipe and to show you how easy it is to make. So let's get started. I'll go over the ingredients quickly, but remember at my website, www.garysurbanlarder.com, you can find a list of the ingredients and the full recipe, but it's so simple. I have some whole milk here, which I've added about a tablespoon of vinegar. I've used white distilled vinegar, but you could use apple cider vinegar. I have some salt, just a small amount, baking soda, cream of tartar, sugar, some extra flour, and I have flour in the bowl already, and just a cutter. This is just under a 3-inch cutter of 68 millimeters that I'm going to use to cut it. I also have my bench scraper and a little brush because I'm going to brush the top of these with some of the milk. So the first thing is just to add all the dry ingredients. So there's the salt, our baking soda, cream of tartar, the sugar, and that really is all of our dry ingredients. And I'm just going to use my hand to put that together. Now there is one other ingredient, and that's our fat. And that has been keeping cool in the refrigerator. Now I did chill my bowl. I even chilled the flour. So everything is very cool, and my hands are cold. Just adding the fat. And I have a mixture of butter and lard. Now, a lot of you may not like lard, but so you don't have to use it. You can leave it out. And I've cut those into small pieces because we're just going to rub that together into the flour. We're going to do that as quickly as we can. And you're often told don't overwork the dough. Well, we're not a dough yet. We're still just working in that fat. So you don't have to worry here. But once we add our liquid, we want to handle it as little as possible because we don't want the gluten to develop. So the secret to a flaky biscuit is getting your fat to flour ratio correct and not overhandling it, not activating those glutens. And one of the reasons I've added vinegar to this is that it delays the development of the gluten. So it helps in aiding in that flakiness. Now you could use buttermilk instead if you like that. Buttermilk is often what I use in this recipe. But I thought I'd show you what you can do with really just a few ingredients on hand. So I'm just going to rub that together. Before we add our liquid. And so what happens when you bake a biscuit, and we're going to do that in a very hot oven. I've got that at 425 degrees Fahrenheit, 220 Celsius. So a very hot oven. And what happens is all those little globules of fat melt and they leave little air pockets, and that really creates the flakiness. And of course the soda and the cream of tartar help to leaven and help with that structure. So I make biscuits often, and you can make these ahead and you can cut them and you can freeze them until you're ready to use them. I often do this when I visit my mother in particular, who finds it difficult at 91 to want to be bothered to make biscuits. But for me, it's really no bother at all. So it takes very little time. So we've got that fairly fine. You want it to look a bit like a crumb or a crumble. And it's a similar method when you're making scones as well. And people will argue that a scone is a biscuit and a biscuit is a scone. They're slightly different, and this is an American biscuit. So I'm sure their origins are the same. So we've got our fat worked in. It doesn't have to be uniform in terms of the appearance. We're going to have some bits of fat still showing. That's what we want. You can see I've just kept one hand clean. So I'm just going to put some of this aside. So I'm just going to now add our liquid. So I've got a clean work surface that I'm going to use to pat out our dough. Really not going to knead it. We want to handle it as little as possible, and it's a very wet dough. So I'm just going to get some of the flour, the extra flour out there. And just turn out our dough. And you'll understand why I have the scraper handy, because I need to scrape this off my hands gently. And I'll use the scraper to help move this around on the work surface on our countertop. Yeah. Just get the bulk of that off. I just want to get the rest of that. There we go. And just going to flour a little bit more, including my hands. Again, with my scraper and my hand, I'm just going to start to fold that onto itself. You see, and you'll see very quickly it comes together. And there's no reason to knead this at all. So we're just going to fold that and pat it onto itself. And you see, that makes the laminations, the folds, into the dough, so that when we cut it, we'll get those nice layers. So I'm just going to do that. And once I'm happy with it, just pat it out. We're not going to use a rolling pin. I'll just take our cutter. Should have a little flour on that. Our cutter, and we'll just cut out our first biscuits. And we'll just pull that excess dough away. And I've got a wire rack from my oven that I've lined with parchment paper. And I'm just going to set my biscuits on there. And then, again, using my scraper, I scrape that together, and then a couple of folds. Pat it out again. Dust our cutter. And we'll cut in a couple more biscuits. And we don't want to twist, because we want that edge to stay clean. So I think I can get a couple more out of this. Excess dough off my fingers. Yeah. So that gives us 6. Use my scraper to get that up. Let's see, we'll try to get one more. And the trick, the reason you're careful about the amount that you can get out of your dough is you want to have that edge again so that it rises. So we've got 7 biscuits, and I'm just going to take the remainder of my milk and brush the tops. And I want to avoid getting it on the sides because that will keep it from rising properly. Right. So I'll just pop those in our oven. So our biscuits are in our oven. They'll be there for 12 to 15 minutes. We'll keep an eye on them. So I'm just going to clean up, and in 15 minutes our biscuits will come out and we'll have a taste. Our biscuits are out of the oven, and I just want you to look at, can you see the steam? Look at how fluffy and wonderful it is. So I'm just going to add a bit of butter. And I think it probably needs a little bit of preserve. So I have some strawberry, which is my favorite. Preserves, I'm going to just add a bit on there. So time to give it a taste. Absolutely delicious, flaky, light. So very good. Well, thank you for joining me today. If you liked today's recipe, please give us a thumbs up. Remember to subscribe to the channel and share it with your friends.